Well, good morning, paddlers, and Happy New Year 2021. This is Gary in lovely Ballona Creek, Los Angeles, California, on a beautiful New Year's Eve sunny morning here. Temperature about, probably 15 Celsius or so now. 50 or a little higher than that Fahrenheit. So anyway, you can see there, hopefully I'll tilt the camera up on my head, ahead of me the beautiful San Gabriel Mountains up to 10,000 plus feet. That's Mount Baldy, you might be able to see, covered with snow. Other higher mountains looking east-southeast from Ballona Creek, which is between Marina del Rey and Playa del Rey, which is my neighborhood of Los Angeles. So, why am I here? What am I doing? Purpose of this video is to sort of show, demonstrate, and explain what I'm calling perceptual goals approach to surfski and kayak paddling, improving technique, both on your own and with the assistance of a coach. So this is based upon a psychological theory called Perceptual Control Theory, which was developed by an engineer, actually, William T. Powers, in the 1960s and 1970s. His seminal book has the title of Behavior, the Control of Perception. And basically the idea is that any purposeful behavior depends upon having an internal perceptual goal. In the theory, it's called reference level. I'm going to say perceptual goal, a way of perceiving what's really happening outside the organism, matching what you see or hear or feel or taste with what you want to perceive. That's the perceptual goal. And any difference there, that is called an error. And then you use your behavior to act on the environment in such a way as to reduce that error. So if this is really a good theory, and actually it's been very well validated by lots of research, although it is not a mainstream psychological theory yet, it should be something that is useful to improve your performance, your technique in surfski or kayak paddling, of course other sports as well. So I am going to try to go through the paddle stroke here and do a number of things, try to identify what these goals might be, how we can perceive if we're meeting those perceptual goals, and then what to do to reduce that difference. So it's really based upon perception. We're going to start from the bottom up, from the feet through the legs, the hips, the torso, shoulders, top arm, hands through the paddle shaft, lower arm, and then what the blade is actually doing. So we're going to go through all of that, and it's going to take a while, but you'll get an idea just from the first couple of examples as to what this is all about. The senses that we're using are certainly vision. Surfski paddling has some advantages there because we can see ourselves pretty good. We can see a lot of what we're doing, as opposed to, say, swimming, where you can see virtually nothing of what you're doing when you're doing a proper freestyle stroke. Anyway, we all will be using feeling. There are two parts of feeling. One is the touch. I know how hard I'm grabbing this by touching it. If my heel is touching the bottom of the foot brace, I can feel that. And also proprioception, what position your body, your limbs are in at any particular time and how it's moving. So you should be able to, for example, know if your arm is at 90 degrees at the elbow without looking. That's less accurate. You may have to verify with vision, but that's the other part of feeling. I'm going to use those sort of together. Sound can come in as well, hearing, and I think that's it. I don't think taste or smell or balance may have a role, but we're not going to consider that. Okay, so let's get going here. First thing, starting at the feet. What do I want to be happening here? Well, I certainly want to be pushing against the foot brace, right? So that should be felt by my heel, right? You're pushing with your heel on a Surfski. On a kayak, you could push more with your whole foot because you steal with the rod in the center. But here you don't want to hit the top because you'll screw up your steering, right? So you want to feel that heel driving, pushing into the foot brace. You should get the feeling that you're actually pushing the boat ahead of yourself, right? You're pushing it on each stroke, okay? And that side alternates with which side you're paddling on, okay? Now, to deliver force, you want to have your leg extended, all right? On the same side that the paddle is in, all right? So you can, the foot was feel, right? You don't really see anything. So that's a feel, a touch. Same thing, you get two cues with the leg extension. You can certainly see if your legs are being extended, right, or bent, and you can also feel it. You can feel, at least in my boat, with how I have my foot brace set up, I can feel my calf making contact with the bottom. I don't really feel my hamstrings here, but I do feel calf. Now that may differ depending upon how you have your boat set up and your body and a bunch of things. But you need to identify what that is and then tune into that. If you're not making contact or you see that you're not stretching that leg out, you can do what it takes to do that. So that's the foot and the leg. Okay, next one is really tricky. It's the hips. I want to rotate the hips, right? Everybody talks about rotation. This is hard to see. Hard even while I'm not paddling to see what's happening with my hips. One thing I like, however, is the elbow to same side knee drill. So this sort of forces your hips to rotate. I'll even put my elbow a bit inside the same side knee. That really forces me to make a good rotation of my hips. Then I can sort of try to see what that feels like. And then when I stop doing that, and now I sit up tall for a regular paddle stroke, try to have it feeling the same down there in the hips and my bottom sitting on the in the cockpit. But that is a tricky one, and I think you may need to have a coach paddling along and see, are you really rotating those hips like you should? Maybe even a coach won't be able to tell. I'm not sure, but this is a tricky one. So I'd be interested in people's thoughts about that. Okay, let's continue to move up the power chain here. So the torso should be rotating as well. And I don't really know what you can do there. I guess I can look down to a certain extent at my life jacket and see to what extent I'm coming around here. But let's just focus on the shoulder, because I think the shoulder is basically the same. If the shoulder is rotating, then the torso is rotating. Now this is a little tricky too. One of the things that I've come up with is I can look, and it might be better without the bulky PFD on, I can look down here and see the underarm of the paddle, and if I look at the underarm of the top hand, I should see that coming well inside the cockpit of the boat for a good rotation. Now the goal is to be about 45 degrees on each side, at least according to what I understand, right? So if I do that, and particularly since my boat, it has a nice white here and then blue inside the cockpit, this should be well inside the blue if I'm rotating. So that's a visual clue, which could be useful. See if that works for you and for your boat. So I can check that. You know, seeing where your elbow is a little less useful, I think, for rotation, because you can rotate the hand off the shoulder, which moves the elbow in, but it doesn't necessarily mean that your core is rotating or the shoulders themselves are rotating. So I like using the underarm. Okay, so now we're going to go from the shoulder to the top arm. Everybody knows you want to have that 90 degrees and maintained. So how do you get that 90 degrees? Well, you can look over and pause and see if it's there. Do a little bit of a pause at the setup before the catch. You're not going to be looking over there all the time, but if you can verify that it looks 90 degrees, and then what does that feel like, you can, in a sense, calibrate your proprioception. What does that feel like? What does that feel like? You can even do that off the boat, is see if you can, without looking, get that 90 degrees, even move your arm a little bit forward, and then look and see how close. I tend to be a little bit past 90 degrees. I need to get a little bit more vertical, smaller angle. So that's the upper arm, and that's vision and proprioception, or feeling. The other thing now is, one of the things I've been having difficulty with is the position of the top hand as it comes across. Now again, I want that top arm 90 degrees, so I've got that. Now what path should I take? What height and what path? So I think it's sort of understood that more relaxed paddling is low angle, so it'll look like more like this, and my hand is out about my shoulder. This may look different on the video because the camera's on my head and looking down with a super wide lens, but this to me now sort of looks about shoulder, and you can see the angle the paddle makes is also a giveaway. It's clearly less than 45 degrees. It seems to be about 30 maybe. Now if I increase that angle to about 45, I get my upper arm coming right across, my upper hand coming right across my eyes. Again, it may look different in the video. So I got the height, and then the other thing is the path itself. That's the starting height. Do I want to come down? And I see some great paddlers so doing this, starting really high and coming down diagonally with the top hand. I see others coming straight across, and that tends to be what most coaches, I think, recommend. So I can check that easily with vision, all right? Or I guess you could actually put in and go up. I don't know why you would ever want to do that. So we're using vision for that. Easy to check, both, in my case now, I'm looking for in front of my eyes. I can just look at that. I actually like looking at the paddle shaft. So I have to look up a little bit to see my hand, but you always see the paddle shaft. And so I want that to be roughly 45 degrees. I can check that. By 45, I mean like that, right? Higher than that is going to be pretty high angle, and then lower would be about 30. So I like the angle of the paddle shaft in front of me as a good clue. Okay, so now we're up at the top hand. Talk a little bit about paddle grip. Now, I can't tell how tightly I'm grabbing the paddle by looking at it, but I can feel it certainly. So most coaches will say you want a loose grip, relaxed grip, certainly no tighter than you need for good control of the paddle. So you can do that. You can actually push with the top hand with the fingers out, and you can look at that. That will give you some relaxation of the forearm muscles that control the grip. And as you're pulling, instead of grabbing tight, you can sort of hang off the fingers as hooks. So that's something that you can do, and you can feel that if you have a relaxed grip. So coming down now the paddle shaft, we're going to the bottom arm, and it's sort of, I think, accepted that that arm is straight but relaxed, not extended stiff, but relaxed straight. So you're sort of pulling on it. It is not bent. It's not extended straight. It's what even Lola calls broken. I don't like thinking of broken arms when I'm paddling. So I'd like to say just sort of extended, relaxed and extended. So we want that to be. Now you can sort of see that, I guess you can see it pretty well, that you don't want to bend your elbow until it's time to pull the blade out. We'll see how that shows up on the video. You can check that. You wouldn't normally be looking over there. You can check that out. Okay, so I think I got that down. Now let's look at the paddle blade itself, where it's going. A number of things here. You want it close to the boat. You want it coming out a certain way, which may be debatable. And you also want it to come out of the water at a certain time. Okay, getting it close to the boat, certainly you want. Now, for me to make sure I'm doing this, we can use hearing. So I like to occasionally gently smack the side of my Surfski, and you can hear that, and then back off until it just disappears. And I'll do that once in a while just to make sure I'm getting as close to the boat as possible, which is good. All right, so there's that. There's also the path that the blade makes when it's in the water. Now, what works for me and which makes sense in terms of the physics of the wing blade, which generates lift as it moves to the side, is to follow basically the direction of the bow wake. You can see that. So as you can see, the bow wake is creating an inverted V, and I like to match that on each side. And my paddle here basically does that for me, depending upon how much twist you have. If your blade is more twisted, it's going to move out on the side on its own a little bit more easily. If it's less twisted, you may have to be a little bit more conscious about moving it where you want. But you can certainly see that. Getting in as close to the boat, and then the two legs of the V on each side. So that's the path in the water. I failed to mention waiting until the blade is submerged. If you do this too early, you might be able to, like I'm trying to do now, you might be able to hear more noise if you're in a quiet spot like I am now with still water. So again, you want to make sure that's fully submerged before you apply full power. So that's important. I failed to mention that. And you can sort of see that and maybe feel it. Just back off a little bit, delay a little bit before you start pulling on it, applying power. So then where do you take the blade out? This is interesting as well. I think there could be some debate about this, but most coaches will say you don't want to go past vertical. You don't want to go past your positive angle into a negative angle of the paddle with the water, the forward direction. So that would mean getting it out at about the hips, or even a little bit before the hips. And I can sort of see that, but this is hard. Because I know I tend to go quite a bit behind the hips, even when I feel that I'm doing it right. I think this would be very useful to do, to have a coach paddling along with you and telling you, are you pulling it out right? And then for you to try to know what that feels like, maybe even looks like, and then match that perception. That's the perceptual goal that you need to make that a good paddling behavior. Oscar Trapolsky will say, take it out at your knees, which is clearly too early, but his feeling is, I call this sort of like overcoaching by exaggerating. His feeling is that if you try to take it out at your knees, you'll tend to be late and hopefully get it out at least around your hips. So that's one way perhaps of doing that, but I would like to know exactly when I'm doing it right as I'm paddling. I'm also going to mention that I have done this with a convex mirror right here so that I can see from the front what I'm doing, and I found that very useful. Of course, I do video from the front, but you can only see that later and can't use it in real time. So I found a convex mirror useful to sort of calibrate aspects of my paddling. So we've taken the paddle now out, and I think that basically covers it. So let me know if I forgot something. Let me know if you can think of other perceptual goals that would be useful. Keep in mind your perceptual goals may differ because the higher order goal may differ as well in our bodies, and our attitudes differ about what we want to get out of paddling. So you may want to do much more relaxed paddling and low angle, or you maybe want a more aggressive, faster, and keep it much higher. So that's a goal. Another goal could be, for example, I'm looking at my Garmin here. So now I'm getting my speed and my heart rate. So the speed there, when I first clicked it, was about 5 miles an hour. heart rate was 115. So one thing that you could do is see if you can increase your speed, keeping your heart rate the same. And you can fiddle with your technique. And that is also a perceptual goal. It's a higher level kind of cognitive perceptual goal than just seeing where your hand is. But it makes sense. If you can paddle faster, with less effort, at the same heart rate, or at the same effort, go faster, that would appear to be good. So what did you change to do that? So you may want to change other perceptual goals as they turn around here at the end of the navigable limit of Ballona Creek. So let me know what you think, and if you have different goals, how you could use this, both improving your technique on your own, how you might use this if you are a coach and try to get your paddlers to improve their technique by helping them to discover good perceptual goals for them, mostly vision, but also feeling and maybe a little bit of hearing. And then if you are a paddler with a coach, what you would like your coach to help you with to discover and attain these improvements in your technique. So I head into a onshore breeze that's already starting to develop, and I'm wishing you all Happy New Year 2021. Have great paddling. This is Gary signing off from Ballona Creek in the City of the Angels.